Hello, friends. I'm Mali Pompadit, CEO of the SOAR Community Network and co-founder of the SOAR Community Nebula, a community and movement where conscious, compassionate, and transcendent leaders are connecting, collaborating for greater social good. Welcome to the SOAR Community Network's Change Agent interview series. Today, I am delighted to introduce you to Karen Holmes. Hi, Karen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Molly, and thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. You have a powerful, extraordinary, motivating, inspiring story. Can you please say hello to our audience and share a little bit, a sneak peek of your background, if you will, before we dive into the wonderful work that you're doing in the world?
Hello, everybody, and I'm glad you're tuning in today. And just briefly, for those who don't know, that I am transgender. I transitioned on October 1st of 2010, and life has been 200% happier than I've ever been in my entire life. Uh, just being who I am, being my true self. After my tagline on my business cards and also on my website is 40 years of wandering no more, because that's basically how long it took me to figure this crap out. It's 40 years. But now that this happened, I'm very excited to be able to share with you today my life. When I transitioned, I just wanted to be happy and free, be like normal people. And who's to say what normal's like nowadays? But normal for me now is not what it used to be, because I'm doing things far much more than I ever expected to in life, being an advocate and a strong leader in the transgender community, and to be honored in around the world, basically, is one of the top 50 successful transgender Americans you need to know. So it's and that was by LGBT Nations website. That was I was honored in that about that. So there's a lot more other awards that I've been honored, and also a lot more things that has profiled me in so many different ways, and I'm hoping to be able to share that with you today, so that way you get to know a little bit more about me, as well as what it's like to be transgender, and to know that we are not what you see on Jerry Springer show. We are doing great things out there as far as being police officers, firefighters, military people, judges, lawyers, doctors, nurses, the list goes on. And so that's who we are about. And if you get to know us, you'll know more and you'll love us, hopefully.
Well, Karen, you touched upon some of the incredible journey that you've been on to get here, to be fully transitioned, to, like you mentioned, to be fully who you really are. Tell us more about your background, your career, all the cool things that you were doing before you came out and called yourself Karen. I know that you lived that experience inside for a long time, but to be able to publicly live it and be it. Tell us about your career path prior to that.
Basically, as Tony, which is my prior name, before I transitioned, basically I just had done a lot of volunteer work throughout the community. Everything from being the president of Park Police Volunteer Association for 7 years. 5 of them were in a row. I took a break, trying to give somebody else a little opportunity and chance, and things kind of went down a little bit. And I said, let me go back in one more time. We got it back up. And then I just went on and left there basically right before my actual transition, because I didn't really think that they were going to be acceptable to that. But, little did I know down the road, talking to the chief of police there, he had already knew and was okay with it. He was just waiting for me to come out to him rather than somebody outing me a little bit more. And did volunteer work with cystic fibrosis, RSVP, which is Retired Seniors Volunteer Program, the Red Cross, CERT, which is Community Emergency Response Team, doing a lot of things around that I really enjoyed doing. And it was so interesting. Probably a month before I was about to transition, I told each and every one of my volunteer groups such as Red Cross, CERT, and RSVP that I had something to tell them. And they gave me this really funny look like, "Well, what are you going to tell me?" And I said, "Well, I'm transgender and I plan on transitioning on October 1st of 2010. And they went, "Whew, we thought you were going to leave the organization." And to hear that each and every time from each of the organizations, and I'm like thinking, did you talk to so and so? Did you talk to so and so? And none of them knew each other. They just all had the same response of who I am. Later, I mean, in 2000, I actually started working with AmeriCorps. It's a federal government, and volunteers all over the country were volunteering and doing work in the communities and stuff like that. And I actually got two awards being a servant, as far as doing service work outside of the agency. And it was called the Willis Green Community Service Award. So I got that when I was Tony back in 2003. And then I ended up getting it again as Karen in 2014. And it was so funny because a lot of people kept going, "Didn't you get that award before?" And I went, "No, that wasn't me. That was Tony. Now I got it for myself." And, people just don't seem to understand. I could care less if you got it one time, two times, three times. The thing is, I didn't let winning that award for one time ever deteriorate me from doing it again, because I feel like it only made me want to do more in the community, because I didn't want, like I said, I didn't want anybody to think, "Oh, it's a one-time deal." No, this is who I am continuously. Like when I was with Park Police as the volunteer, the president, I ended up getting the Commander's Award twice while I was with them in the 7 years. And I ended up getting the Volunteer of the Year Award with them as well twice. So, that goes to tell you, whether it was Volunteer of the Year Award or the Commander's Award, I was still going to go out there and do whatever I could to give to the community. And that's what's important, giving.
Powerful stuff, Karen. We're going to circle back to the work that you're doing and the projects that you're working on for the community in a second. But I want to pause for a moment and just go back in time and ask you this question. You've been on a journey, like we all have been on a journey. When in your life have you experienced kindness, empathy, compassion, or a helping hand from someone or a community of people, perhaps, that changed your path and your life for the better? An experience or someone that you can think of that has shifted you in a profound way. Can you give an example or story of that?
Wow. That's very exciting and an important question. I guess basically, in my own family, my mom, she actually, was there, a very type of supportive person through the family or with friends, so I learned to be able to do that. And when I told my mom about my transition, I waited 2 weeks before I actually transitioned on my transition date of October 1st of 2010. And the reason why I waited that long is because of the fact that I didn't want her to try to change my mind. Because, when you transition as a transgender person, you have to look at a lot of things in front that's going to possibly put you in danger, either being assaulted or murdered. And so that's what she worried a lot about, is my safety. But to see how she was as a woman and as a mother, she did a lot of things for me in my life to make me say, "Oh, wow, that's who I want to be as a woman," somebody that's very supportive and outgoing to other people. There's a thing that I always said: do it because it's in your heart, not because expect something back. And to me, that's profound when you think of it that way, that, everything I do is from my heart. I don't expect anything back in return. I just want to do it for that person, to bring a smile to their face, to make them have a better day. My day isn't as bad as theirs. So, and I'm trying to think of anybody really out there in the community that really changed my mind. The only thing I could say is basically that the people I met at the Philadelphia Trans Health Conference, when I went to the workshop sessions for all the transgender people that were there speaking and stuff, I went, wow, that person is somebody I want to, see and be and all this kind of stuff. I'll give you a really good name of a friend of mine who I met through my transition, and that's Kristen Beck. She was, I'm sure some of the listeners out there, she is a retired Navy SEAL from Team 6 who transitioned out there, and to hear about the struggles that she went when she came out, the hatred that and people wanting to kill her. I mean, like, wow. To me, I'm thinking, do you really want to mess with a Navy SEAL person? you know, but some people are. And then my other biggest hero in the transgender community is Donna Rose. She actually did my training for me. She did a book called Dressed in Blue, and she did my training for me at my agency, and I thought she did a great job at it. And to hear people still today bring her up, like, hey, have you talked to her? You know, or anything like that, just to see that she was that kind of an influence on my transition into the agency. And because I actually transitioned on the job at AmeriCorps. So the first, of course, my first 10 years there, people were like, I knew I could be successful in my transition. I figured I would have a 5 or 10% of an issue coming back. But it actually, when I came back 2 weeks later, it was actually like a 1 to 2% of an issue. So most people accepted who I was because of the fact that I did so much in the community and stuff. I heard only a couple of things that came up, like people saying, oh, Karen looks like she's dressed to go to a nightclub or a party. And I'm like, I've never dressed like that, And I talked to a really good girlfriend of mine who I just again talked to about 2 weeks ago on the phone. And she brought up about the part that I said, I came to her and I said, yeah, people are telling me that, other women. And she said, welcome to the catty world. And I'm like, I got to deal with this now, So that was kind of tough, but we're happy.
I'm thinking about this as you were sharing, and I think about all the people who sometimes we make assumptions around the expectations we have of who will support us and who won't support us. And sometimes it's a surprise, and other times it's people just want to be happy. They want you to be happy, and they have other things to worry about. And most people who are good people will let you be. Now, there are, like you mentioned, a community of folks who are filled with anger, hatred, prejudice, that are going to have reactions that are not so positive. What I'm happy to hear is that for the most part, you've had positive reactions and acceptance, and it's wonderful to know that that is possible as well, especially in such a challenging world that we live in. Now, I'm going to ask
real quick, I try to tell people, whenever I go speak, that we transition to be happy. And because of the way society has treated us, we ended up losing our spouse, our children, our home, our jobs, our friends who we think are really going to be there for us. And then we end up committing suicide. Our suicide rate in the community is 41%. That's very, very high. My biggest concern when I transitioned, I wanted to make sure that my immediate family, my mom, dad, brother, and my stepsister, who I really say my sister, they gave me the full support that I needed. And to me, that made a difference in my life and who I am. I had like a couple of uncles at first, kind of were standoffish. One of them actually years ago changed, and we got a little bit more warmer and closer. And just last year in November, one of my uncles who really just kind of like disowned me back for like 11 years now, he opened up a couple of months ago to me. And to hear my mom say, oh, your uncle was basically saying, hey, how are you? And just asking, and he always wanted my mom to tell me hi and everything else. And then finally, I said, let me go ahead and talk to him, because he is reaching out. because at first I was like at the point where, you know, to hear him tell my cousins to push me off and don't be associated with me hurt. And I said, if something happens to him and he passed away, I'm not going to the funeral. You know, that's how bad it was for me. And, but I always kept in the back of my mind, if he reached out and really meant it, then we could bring this bridge back together. And it happened. He's even said, you know, love you. I'm sorry that I was, you know, that way. I just didn't understand. And it's great to hear the apologies the way he's been for it. So he's happy when I call, and that's the way it is now.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. Um, I'm also wanting to make sure we have time for you to talk about your projects and the initiatives. And here at SOAR, our work is to really help organizational leaders and just human beings create a world where there's compassion, where they feel harmony and cohesion, where they're fostering collaboration and innovating so that we can solve a lot of big challenges around the world. So when you think of C3, compassion, cohesion, and collaboration, how do you believe your work will foster that for your community, the community you wish to serve? So let's talk about that answer and then talk about the projects you're working on.
Um, you know, I believe that we should try to be able to do whatever we can at an organization. And even for yourself to be able to grow, to bring people in so you can make changes in their lives. I think if you can do that, it's going to be a much better world. I've basically everything that I do for work for years, I give it all 100%. I don't believe in giving it just a tiny bit just to get a tiny bit or try to get, oh, I'll do a tiny bit to hopefully get a little bit more. I want to be that way all the time, 24/7. I don't care if you're a small organization or a large organization. I want to give you the same benefit as if I was to give you were a small company to a large company. To me, it's no different. You should get the same respect, outgoing from me to take care of your problem than the big guy. It shouldn't make any difference.
Yeah. Talk to us about I had the pleasure of talking to you before this interview, so I know about the initiatives and the projects. Talk to me about your butterflies.
The Butterfly Project. Wow. Let me start from the beginning on that. Back in 2019, there were two trans sex workers, women who were murdered in Fairmont Heights, Maryland, in the area of Eastern Avenue, which one side is Maryland and the other across the street is DC. And so after the second one was murdered, I got a call from the commander from 3rd District Police Department. And she said, basically, she was tired of her officers pushing the girls over to the DC side. DC would come by, push them back to Maryland. And she said it was just back and forth. She didn't want to play ping pong with the girls. And she said, is there anything you would like to do to help? And I said, absolutely. I'll give it my best. And I told her, I said, is it possible that I can go out on ride-alongs in that area so that when we come across any of the trans people out there, that I can stop, get out of the police car, go up and talk to them and say, hey, look, there is something, I want to talk to you about. Is there anything we can do to help you get off the streets? And a lot of them said, hey, I need a job. I need a home. I need food. And I'm like, okay, that's great. They're not out here just to be out here doing sex work. It's a survival. That's what I tell a lot of police that I ride with out there now. I said, it's called survival sex, because of the fact they don't have these things. They want to be able to achieve it on their own. So I started a thing called the Prince George's County Trans Coalition in Prince George's County, where I got other organizations to come together and to tell them what I wanted to try to do. One, I wanted to help them with resume building and also sit across the table with each of them and say, look, we're going to role play a job interview that you're trying to get. And the other thing was dress for success. So everybody loved the idea. They wanted to get together. They wanted to do whatever we could to to help this program out. And it wasn't quite yet the project because actually 2 years ago, I met these people at a reef laying that was over in the Fairmont Heights area for the two girls that were murdered. And one lady, her name is Rebecca Oxley from the Greenbelt Library System. She was so inspired by my speech and my talk at the reef laying. She went back with her boss and they just started coming up with ideas to expand what I wanted to do, which was the resume building, the role playing, dress for success. They said, let's go and add mentoring and stuff like that. Let's add a once a month luncheon for 6 months. Get them involved with their mentor and show them how to operate a computer. Get them involved in the library system because the library is safe haven basically for everyone. And so she came up, inspired by me, called the Butterfly Project. And so we've got so far a lot of people that are involved that want to be involved as far as helping out with resume building, role playing. And they said, people have said, hey, I've got clothes that they can wear for job interviews and also for work. My bedroom is pretty much packed right now with some clothes. I got to get it over to an actual boutique place who's actually going to be donating her own clothes there that are brand new and stuff like that. So that's in the works. But the sad thing about it, we're suffering is with COVID. We haven't been able to get together socially because of the fact the library is going under the guidelines of COVID separation and all that kind of stuff. So, but we're hoping, that, I've got the attention of a lot of people right now. Summertime will be coming up. We'll be able to do some outside activities at the library and won't have to worry about, the fact that we can't do it inside. We'll be able to still do it. And so those are what we're working on right now. And I'm hoping I've gotten some people that are interested in Washington, D.C., other people in Maryland. Actually, I went to speak out in Portland, Oregon, to the police department out there because I did a project with the Department of Justice Community Relationships. I'm partnered with them. So I'm actually trying to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the transgender community. So while being out there in Portland, the contact out there that I was talking to as part of CRS, they said, hey, bring that project out here. So now you can say we're going to be east of the coast, right away soon. And it'll be great.
Fantastic. Well, I hope that people are listening will also want to support, donate, sponsor some of these initiatives because it's going to take a huge effort to make sure that you have national reach, and hopefully some of our audience members will have the heart and the desire and the resources to support you. Let me ask you another question before we begin to close out our interview. Tell us about the name Karen. From Tony to Karen, tell our audience why Karen.
It's how do I really, it's just something that came to heart who I was. And this was before I actually transitioned, because beforehand, actually on Facebook, I used to go by Karen Kendra Harris. Actually the Kendra part, not yet, but Karen Harris. And so what happened was people, when they knew I was going to transition, they said, why don't you go with Antoinette, other than Anthony, or Tony with an I. Some were coming up with some off the wall names. I'm like, no, there's something about Karen I've got to stay with. I don't know why, I just need to stay with that name. And so when I told my mom the day I broke the news to her about my transition, I told her what my name was going to be. And I said, it's going to be Karen Holmes. And actually, at that point, I knew it was going to be Karen Kendra Holmes because it took a little while to figure what would go nice with Karen, So, and she said, and which she had never told me before, she said when she was pregnant, she said if she had a girl, she was going to name it Karen. And I just totally lost it that night because I said, wow, now I know this is who I truly am. And I was in tears after that because I, like I said, to have that name stuck in my head and never be told that story, it just really brought it home for me. And actually, she gave that name to her best girlfriend, who gave it to her daughter. I'm like, oh, she's got my name. But yeah, that's how it all happened. And it's so funny because a lot of my friends, they know, and they either introduce me, they know me as Kendra Holmes. And some call me Karen, some call me Kendra because they like the name Kendra. And then I have some that say K or KK. So I'm like, okay, as long as you don't call me Tony, I'm all happy about that. So
Well, you're not alone even with the name KK. My mother's name is Kyonokan and we call her KK. So there you go. Let me ask you this. When
okay.
you have gone through so much in life and when you have your moments of being down or worried or concerned, is there a quote or a motto or a philosophy that you go to that really helps you come back to center?
Um, I being a religious person and not shoving down religion to the listeners out there, I feel like I'm doing God's work. It was placed on my heart, because of all the volunteer stuff I do. It's something that I'm bringing hope. Matter of fact, I just got an email yesterday from somebody from Michigan that said, "You are such an inspiration to me." And I'm like, let me read this. And it was a good page and a half letter by email saying that how much I've bought into their life to be able to follow. It's a young person in their 20s. and and I just happened to find that I was with the Maryland Defense Force. She's now with the Michigan State Guard Association Defense Force. And I'm like, wow, the connection there is already there because we're both in the same kind of unit, just different state. And to hear the struggles that she's going to and some of the good things that she's getting the support from the other military staff people, command and all that, it's exciting. I wish I could have come out, or the project of me coming out with the Defense Force, it could have been out sooner because it could have really helped her a lot more. So I think about those things, a lot, because I think if she knew or their command knew that I was transgender, and in 2012, I got NCO Soldier of the Year by the Maryland Defense Force and the Maryland State Guard Association, that would have been something to let them know, yes, we can do it. And then in 2013, getting from the State Guard Association of the United States, I got Soldier of the Year of the country. We're talking 35 states and 24,000 soldiers that are in Defense Force. And to hear their comments from female soldiers to say, hey, great job, you're doing it for us. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel because that's what's in my mind, heart, and spirit. But I'm also doing it for the transgender community, which I wasn't able to talk about then at the time being. When ABC 2 News out of Baltimore did a report on me, and it was up in Baltimore where our regiment was, a lot of the command for the Maryland Defense Force were like, great job, we love the interview, we're proud of you. To hear all of that, I think it would have helped her in her transition a lot better and sooner, but she's doing pretty good. Going to be following up on her more with a letter today.
Right. All right. Well, one final question.
Uh-huh. Oh, you can ask more than that.
For you, from your perspective, from your life journey, what would make a better world?
I think just to get along with everybody, we being transgender and knowing other trans people in the community, if you're gay and lesbian, what does it hurt you? It doesn't hurt you to accept one another. And that's the biggest thing is, people just don't seem to understand that respect goes a long way. And we want it just as much as anybody else to be able to live a life and be happy about who we are and be accepted. That's the biggest thing. I feel like I'm this little pebble that's being tossed out into a big body of water. And the ripple effect of that going out is me telling my story to you and other people, that we hope if they hear something negative about a trans person, no, I know this person personally, or I've heard their story. Trans people are not like that. They should be accepted and loved just like everybody else.
Do you have any final words of wisdom for those that have either transitioned or thinking about transitioning or afraid to share who they really are and come out to say that this is really what is in their heart, this is what they want? What would you like to say to the community, wherever they are on that spectrum of not sure to come out and share this with everyone, going through this and feeling alone, or already on the other side of the transition, but finding their place?
Um, I think what's very, very important is that you know when it's the right time for you. Um, I know for me, when I wanted to and I thought about it, I'm dreaming about it, I wasn't really sure. And me going to the conference up in Philadelphia, Trans Health Conference, was an eye-opening thing for me because I didn't know who else out there believed or saw or felt the way I did. I thought really I was alone out there. Back then, I wasn't much on computers to be able to understand what transgender is all about, which now you almost can flip the page and there it is, which makes it so much better for the younger people that are coming out, even the older people. Some people think, being a certain age is the time when to come out. No, you'll know the timing is right for you when it happens. And, sometimes people say, oh, do you wish you had transitioned early? And I go, yeah, I would have loved to have known the right time to come out, but it just wasn't the right time. And I say, if God had brought certain things into my life about being transgender or transitioning at an earlier age, I probably would have been this wild child. And to do it at the age of 53, I felt like, I'm ready. And it was when it hit me after I left that conference, I was like this runaway freight train. And that's when I knew it was right for me because I was gun-ho, fired up. I wanted to do whatever it took to go ahead and transition now because that's what it felt like in my heart. I couldn't stop it at that point. Beforehand, I always weren't sure. I was undecided. Well, I wasn't undecided on in June of 2010. I was ready to go, after talking with people at work, coming up with a game plan when to transition and just doing it the right way. And that's where it's worked for me.
That's great. I've enjoyed our conversation so much during this interview and before this interview, getting to know you, your spirit, your heart. And that's really what it is. We're all human beings searching for a sense of purpose and meaning, trying to do good and be the best versions of ourselves. And so I accept you, I acknowledge you. I am curious about your journey and will continue to share and build upon our
Absolutely.
friendship so I can support and advocate and also give you the space and the platform to continue to share and do this amazing work for not just your community, but to be an example for other communities who may not necessarily have the resources that they need to live the most authentic, beautiful, powerful life. And so with that being said, how can people learn more about you? And I want to make sure that everybody knows you have a TED Talk that's very powerful. So please, everyone go search for Karen Holmes. And I guess the keywords would be 40 years wandering, and you'll be able
Yep.
to pop up right on the TED website. So please check out Karen's TED Talk. And also, where else could they find you and connect with you, Karen?
You can find me on Facebook, which is Karen Kendra Holmes. I do have a second one, which is Karen Kendra Holmes dash KK Holmes. But pick the first one. If not, second one's just as good because I'm finding out some of the stuff is coming over, which is great. The other one is you can look for me on my website, which is www.kkholmes.com. There, it's been really exciting. You'll be able to contact me through there. You'll be able to see my schedule when I'm going to be speaking and where. And it just goes on. the great thing about my personal website is it's been over a 500,000 views on it so far, since I brought it up to live, uh, website. And then you can reach me on Twitter. You can reach me on LinkedIn, all of those social media things. You can find me. And I'm willing to speak, come out and speak. I do that now all over the country. The big thing is right now working with the Department of Justice Community Relationship, bridging that gap between the transgender community and law enforcement. And in closing on my part, I just want to really say my life inspiration is not to have more, but to be more. And in making a difference is my mission. And that's what I stand and live by every day.
Thank you. What a wonderful send off to the closing of this interview. It's been an honor to have this conversation with you. It has been an inspiration, and my hope is that many people are also motivated and inspired to do some good in their communities. Because, when we have these journeys that we go on in life, it's not just for us, the lessons that we learn. It's to be shared by those that we can mentor, those that we can lift up. And so you're doing just that. And I'm grateful to know you. I'm grateful that a dear friend of ours, a mutual friend, connected us. And so she knows who she is. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
so appreciate you for being here, Karen. For all of you listening, for our SOAR community, our Nebula community, thank you for tuning in to another episode of our Change Agent series. The SOAR podcast is made up with brilliant stories of extraordinary people doing wonderful things for their communities. To learn more about developing transcendent leaders or change agents inside your organizations, please contact us. Visit our website, soarcommunitynetwork.com, or go to nebula.soarcommunitynetwork.com. Thank you again, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.